It's time for Remote Sales Live. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jonathan Fischer. Today's a great time to be a worker. The so-called Great Resignation has left many employers scrambling to hire enough people. Many have made drastic changes to their company culture in hopes of wooing more high-quality professionals. All these are great developments for anyone looking to land their dream job, but nothing will change the fact that the job-seeking professional has to do their part to win. The most highly desirable positions, there are still going to be critical steps that you have to take before, during, and after the interview that will make all the difference in competing for that role. Well, our guest today has you covered. Travis Patterson is a best-selling author, podcaster, and the founder of Patterson Resume Resources, an award-winning career coaching and consulting firm. Travis has also been featured in national media, including Fox News, Huffington Post, U.S. News, and many others. I think it's fair to say Travis Patterson is a bona fide expert on our topic today. Travis, fantastic to have you on the show. You're muted, sir.
One of the many things of working from home, right? You know, when you're, selling from home, working for different employers, and that's one thing you hear often. Hey, you're muted. You gotta unmute.
Yep.
Man, I hear my resume from other people like yourself, and I'm just like, wow, I did that. And it's just, I don't know. I tend to always focus on what's next and what's in front of me. But thank you so much for having me here.
Great to have you. Well, Travis, I think it'd be nice to hear a little bit about your background. How did you get into doing the kind of work you are doing today?
Absolutely. That's a good question. So a lot of people, try to define their career early on. And of course, they want to know that what you're doing at step A is going to help lead that path into this dream job, into, step Z. But, truth is that the journey can be not what you expect at all, but you have to be flexible and adapt with it. So I started out in customer service, working for different retail, companies. I had graduated from high school, went into the Navy. I was like, I'm going to be a chef. I'm a culinary specialist. So I started working there and got out, started working in different places, went to college. Again, culinary background. There's speaking of career change, and we're going to talk about this later on, here's an old photo of me
Oh, nice.
cooking. And I was like, okay, I just remember working all these different jobs. I think I had like 2 to 3 different jobs at a time, which is pretty normal for me back then.
Sure.
I was like, I need one job that's going to give me all of this that I'm getting. But more importantly, I know that my life is supposed to mean more than this. So I got a call from Kelly Services and said, hey, can you do a few jobs for us? As usual, yes. So here's the key trend that we're going to talk about later on as well. I kept saying yes to opportunities that came to me.
Okay.
So my career developed because opportunities came toward me. And I never truly had a choice. I never gave myself a choice. But later on in this call, I'm going to show you how to get a choice for the first real time in your career. So all these different opportunities are coming toward me, and eventually Kelly Services is a staffing agency, like all across the world.
Sure.
And they say, hey, can you, we see that you're doing well for our customers. Can you do well for us too? So I got invited to a career fair in-house. They said, we want you to sit at this desk and greet everyone that comes in through the door tomorrow. I come in, there's a line out the door. So there's probably 75 people there at the morning, but probably by close of day, close to 500 people came in, and I didn't sit down once. So that was like my day one, thrown into the fire. You're in HR now. So you can imagine how long does it take to build a skill? And by the end of that day, I didn't know that there was a skill there, that I had presentation skills, that I knew how to connect with people, that I knew how to interview people for the first time. I had been interviewing for so many jobs because so many opportunities came my way, but I did not realize that I also knew or began to know the other side of the desk. So fast forward, Kelly Services gave me my first human resources opportunity. Within 6 months, I became an HR coordinator. Within 1 year, I became an HR project manager. Within 2 years, I had interviewed thousands of people for jobs that I had to fill for accounts that I was responsible for. So the one thing they don't tell you when you start being a recruiter for a staffing agency is that you also have to become you also have to improve your interview skills, but you also have to become a resume writer because you're going to present them to your customer.
Mm-hmm.
So after thousands of trials and getting to the yes, and I understand this, we're talking to salespeople, so you definitely understand what it takes to get to the yes.
Mm-hmm.
I finally built a skill that was going to be profitable. So I built a little reputation in my hometown for being the guy with the jobs. I was on social media, always posting different jobs and advice. And I just had an opportunity. It was on my birthday, 2013, to go full-time business owner, and I did. So I got my first client that night after posting out on social media. And from that point, I started beating on my craft to make sure that I'm presenting the best skills possible and interview insight as possible to help people get the jobs that they're looking for.
That's really great. And by the way, I'm going to be at your place for lunch after the show today, correct?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to see you soon.
Okay, all right. I'll jump down.
Set up.
I'm in Columbus, Ohio. You're in Atlanta, Georgia, but we're not going to let that stop me.
No, it'll stay warm.
Yeah, all right. I love it, though, and I love the fact that there's a little nugget, I think, in there that I noticed, and I've seen this with a lot of folks in my own background as well. You can have a real passion for something and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's a great career option for you.
Exactly.
It makes you hate the thing you love. It, in fact, to get put. So it's good to be aware, and the opposite could be true. It could be that thing you have a passion for, it just feels natural. But that you said you had this feeling that there was something more, and that's probably. Yeah. Would you agree that that's like a little clue? You probably shouldn't ignore that.
You should not ignore that. No matter if it's for your sales career or even get into management. No matter what, or if you want to go into starting a business, because I think for people who are in sales, eventually, if you're an account executive and you get used to making 100K, 200K, I mean, what's the next step after that? What's the next promotion? Business ownership. I mean, traditionally, or you're going to be, chief revenue officer of some sort. So I just remember, I mean, just as clear as day, working again, we're multiple jobs. I was just like, good gosh, I know my time is worth more than $7.25. Like I felt it. I was like, I know, and it's not just my time, because time is not money. You can get a refund on money. You cannot get a refund on your time. Yeah. So it's like, I need to fulfill my purpose. What is my purpose? I had to get in a real quiet place, Jonathan, because again, when opportunities are always coming to you, you never get a real chance to really think for yourself for the first time. You always going to just say, yes, what's good. It's survival. You have to pay bills. You have a family, whatever that thing is. Where the money is, that's where I'm heading. So you cannot ignore that calling and purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, a little note to employers there as well. That's why compensating people appropriately is so critical. If you try to nickel and dime your people, and not that everyone is doing that in an overt way, but there could be a real hidden cost to that, because what is the real price of losing good people and trying to replace them? That's something to think about too. Another little side note, I think.
So that's a good one.
So you promised to share with us, to our audience, things that they could do before, during, and after the interview. And what I'd like to maybe do is break those down, if we could, for the conversation, and talk first of all about where people are missing it, and then give you a recommendation for that. And we'll do that for each of those 3 segments, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
So what are people missing it? What are they like not doing, like before the interview? What are some of the biggest missed opportunities or mistakes they're making, or things they could do they're not thinking about, et cetera?
I think one of the biggest things is, and so I'm going to speak from the point of view of at least 30 clients that I have every year that do the same thing. And I have to change their beliefs in order to improve their efficiency and the results. So there's a pattern, and I don't really know where it really comes from. I don't know if it comes from back in school, grade school, where you have to take a test, you don't know the answer, so you just kind of guess kind of thing. And then you're like, hey, I did well. And you find out that you didn't. So I think for job interviews, there's something that comes within someone where they're just applying for jobs, quick apply. Hey, I applied for jobs today. And then you don't get a call back. It's like, well, there's a few things wrong with that. One, what's your strategy? Is there any accuracy to the jobs you're applying for? You can apply to any job. You can apply to jobs that you're overqualified for, underqualified, or just completely different industry, and you will miss the mark if you're not really focusing on the quality of the positions that you're applying for. So probably I would say, just to kind of start it off, one big thing that people miss the mark on is, and this also relates to getting a choice for the first time and applying for the right jobs, and also having accuracy in the types of jobs that you're going to accept offers from, and not just settle for less because it's the only thing that you receive this week or this month, or you've been wrongfully applying for jobs for 2 months and this is the only thing that happens to slip through the cracks. You really have to think about the language that you have, the language and communication on your resume, the language and communication during your interview. And you have to also understand the purpose of the interview process. I think probably 7 out of 10 don't really even understand the real purpose of an interview process. And it's shocking to me. So your communication. So first of all, your resume is what gets you the interview. Your resume does not get you a job.
That's good. That's worth saying again.
I'm gonna say a little louder for the people in the back. I know somebody's written down notes. If you're not, this is your time to take copious notes, because you do not want to miss the mark. You do not want to go another year. You know, people say, "Oh, I have 10 years experience." No, you have 1 year experience doing it over and over for 10 years. You have not actually gotten better at it. So your resume itself does not get you the job. Your resume is designed, or should be designed, to get you the interview. And because I know that people who love this podcast, who love this show, they love winning, and these are great salespeople and develop into sales leaders. You also have to understand that whatever that thing is that's top of funnel for you in your sales process is supposed to be attractive enough to get the phone to ring, or for them to answer the phone if you were to send them something to pique their interest. There's no real major difference between your pipeline of getting a job. You have to understand your pipeline so you're not creating bad habits in the interview process. Same thing with your sales process. So that at the end of your funnel, no, you're not looking at, like you may make a $10,000 sale, $5,000 sale in your sales process, but in this funnel, there can be a 50, 80, 90, 100K job salary at the end of that process with a 30K increase that you didn't expect. So top of funnel, make sure that your resume is attracting. Make sure your communication speaks. Again, we're talking about communication, speaks to the right people on the other side of the screen, over the phone, so that when they see it, out of the other 200 to 300 people who also apply for the same job, and they're also fighting for the same attention that you're fighting for, make sure it speaks directly to that language, because it only takes 7 seconds to know if I want to talk to you or not.
Yeah. Do you think it'd be worthwhile for the job seeker to maybe bone up a little bit on even just marketing and sales? Because what I'm hearing is the resume is a well-designed marketing collateral, marketing asset, right? And then hopefully you get to sell yourself in the interview. Is that kind of, would you resonate with that?
Man, I would say you're doing some good preaching, and I may give you helping of dessert when you come over. So, but that's exactly it. How attractive, how tasty, how appealing is your resume? And okay, now you got them to call you. Now they're texting you. Now they're emailing you, because now you're the hottest, prototype out there. We need this one. Okay, now you don't get a call back. Okay, something is wrong with your funnel. Always evaluate. So during your entire process, what type of clarity are you adding to your resume that's attracting your calls, emails, text messages, direct messages on LinkedIn, Indeed, inbox messages, and more. Now you get them on the phone. If there's a drop off, then there's something with your presentation that started here that is not matching that's coming out of it. So I think confidence is an issue that a lot of people kind of mess around with, and they think they're confident, but it's false confidence because they can trick themselves into appearing confident. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert during your interview process. I think what ends up happening is you get into the interview, you say things that you think sound good, but then it's not exactly what they're looking for. And this works for any industry. So if anyone happens to come on this episode and you search this episode on YouTube or wherever you may find it, even if you are in the entertainment industry and you're trying to get jobs acting, if your profile got you to call, don't change up what you do when you actually get into the audition. Same thing with the interview. Do not change what you do. It doesn't mean that you don't enhance, but don't change. Don't become an apple. If you're an orange, you stay an orange.
Yeah.
Have a great sales orange if that's what you're going to be.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what ends up happening is because the confidence that is portrayed, the number one issue when it comes to interviews is that people are getting to the interview thinking that it's a one-way line of communication, that it's an interrogation, not a conversation. It's not an interrogation.
Right yeah, there you go. You knew it was. Yeah.
It's not an interrogation where I sit you down and I pepper you with 10 questions and you only respond to me based on what I say. And then I ask you at the end, do you have any questions? It's a conversation. It has to be mutually beneficial between you and the employer. And I think for those that may have issues even selling on camera, that can also relate to how you're interviewing on camera or even on the phone is, do you count yourself as someone who should be in the room? You should be in the room. They should want you as much. You're a salesperson. If you're an account executive, you're more than likely going to present $1 million to that business in first year, second year, and third year revenue within your first year. If you close by the end of the year, $150,000 minimum, and that's a low number for an account executive, so maybe S&B level. So that probably also includes second year agreements, third year agreements. So that already brings it up to close to $700,000. And it's so anywhere from 700 to $1 million, you're going to close. You should know that you're going to be presenting that type of value to the business. You are revenue generating. You're in sales. Yeah. You are revenue generating. What is your worth being on this call? Yes, they have the customers for you.
Yeah,
but good. Essentially, you're going to be running your own book of business.
Yeah.
So why don't you bring that type of confidence, knowing that I'm going to be presenting to your customer. So right now I'm going to present to you because you're the gate.
Yeah.
Between me and my money.
That's good. Right? I recently saw Grant Cardone said that if anyone in his company is going to be overpaid, it's going to be the sales department. Because they're generating the revenue. And that makes a lot of sense if you think about it. There's a lot of value there. So knowing your own value, that's another miss. People don't get what that means. Now, and you talk about confidence, there's confidence that's good. There's confidence that's maybe not so good. Let's talk about that a little bit. I've seen that too. I've seen where people think that to be confident is to be maybe like cocky or self-assured in their persona. That can play a role in that. However, that can also fall apart pretty quickly, right? If there is a disconnect, as you were describing, where what was presented in your marketing collateral, which is your resume, doesn't turn out to be true in your sales pitch. So talk about that a little bit. Like what are some steps that need to be taken to make sure there is that continuity, so there's a confidence that's based on reality, that you're actually well prepared. To me, that's confidence. You come in prepared. So your confidence is based on knowing you're going to be able to deal with whatever the situation is going to present to you.
100%. So I think going into your interview, you also have to realize that I would say maybe 3 to 4 minutes into the interview, 4 minutes after, your resume is no longer even a part of the conversation. So although it got you the conversation, it got you in the room, it brought you here. Now you really have to take ownership here. So that false confidence is thinking that, okay, now I have this resume. Yes, now I'm in the call. Now I'm going to be overly dramatic. Now I'm going to be overly excited. And they're going to feel that I'm the world's greatest salesman because I am so energetic. And you should really hire me because, look, people sell to people.
Right.
People interview people. It doesn't matter if this person has how many letters after their name or whatever credentials before their name, director of, VP of, head of, whatever. It doesn't matter. That's a person on the other end of that phone or computer. So just making sure that you are interviewing with purpose. Don't, again, what's the clarity from the resume to actually getting in the interview? Now be that person. Be that person that's on your resume. I think it's once you know your worth and you actually realize that, like, wow, I like you read my resume to me, like, wow, you've been featured in Chicago Journal, this place, that place, and I was like, oh, well, yeah, I forgot I was on TV once, or I've been in a newspaper a few times. It helps to not forget who you are, not for the sake of you better hire me or you're going to miss out, but for the sake of, yeah, I really love what I do. This is my process that took me from 0 to $1 million in sales in 4 years. And I think I can do that for you too. Based on your product, I believe XYZ would be the best route. What do you believe? Again, here's the conversation part of the interview. What do you believe is the best qualities and values in your strongest salespeople?
Sure.
Now you're having a conversation. Now, if you get your interviewer to talk more than you, and not just talk in the form of questions, talk in the form of answers, talk in the form of excitement, you're going to charge them up so much to a point where they're going to want to high five you, hug you, shake your hand. You're not leaving this room until you accept this offer. What are you doing tomorrow? Kind of thing. And because essentially they know you made them feel, a lot of people love talking about themselves. A lot of people, especially the interviewers. So if you make them feel so connected, so valued in the conversation that they're heard, a lot of people want to feel heard. They're going to feel that you understand them. If you understand them, then you can get them to buy into you or whatever product that you're selling.
Yeah, I love that. The whole issue of question and answer that you alluded to before, where the job seeker can feel like this is an interrogation. I've got to be ready for this exam. It's an oral exam of some kind. This shift in the energy where no, it's a conversation. And if anything, it's actually a sales conversation. And if anything, you're the one doing the selling. And I think what's interesting though, is normally when you're selling, you're asking more questions, right? And I think the psychology behind that is typically the one asking the questions is controlling the situation or controlling the conversation. That's obviously true to a large extent. However, there's some overlap, isn't there? Because then there's that shift, even in a conventional sale where the buyer is now asking questions. They're not really controlling anything. They maybe they kind of are, but they certainly feel like they are. And more importantly, those are buying signals, right? Once you've kind of done a good job of pre-qualifying, which means, yes, here's a problem, here's a solution, there's a fit there. Well, now those questions are great. Those are indications of buying in, and that's what you want to have happen. So it's interesting how you're kind of massaging what is really a sales conversation in a little different way, but it really is still a sale at the end of the day, and understanding that dynamic. This doesn't happen in a day. Is this where maybe some coaching and some role playing comes in? Like, what do you recommend to somebody who's like, that all sounds really good, but I don't know what I would do with this information? Like, what do you recommend to that person?
So traditionally, I would say do some role playing, but not just the typical, I'm going to read this question to you and how will you respond? Because truth is, whoever you're going to be reading to, they probably don't know what the right answer is going to be.
Right. Yeah.
So I think, like when I do interview coaching, I've been interview coaching for so many years. What I've come to understand is that it has nothing to do, it doesn't have as much to do with like remembering what your answer is to this question. I hope they ask me this one question because this is my favorite answer to give.
Mm.
No, I think, and this is probably completely opposite to anything that most people would tell you. My interview coaching calls end up turning into life coaching calls because we discover if you don't know how to talk about yourself, if you lack confidence, if you don't know how to correspond with other people of authority, whatever that case is, then you're not going to be able to answer any question that they approach you with.
I like that, because now you're not trying to stack up a bunch of prepared responses and hope
Right.
that they don't ask one that you're not ready for. You're more in touch with the totality of it, and you have some facility, I think is the right word, with just how to talk about anything related. I love that, because that sounds like you're far more armed and dangerous,
There you
as
go.
it were, going in. So that's good stuff.
Man, you need to weaponize yourself in any situation, and this is the opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy yourself a Broadway play, ticket, you know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to stand up, you're going to clap, you're going to leave and say, I had a good time, but did you really? I think essentially is you go into the interview, if you do the same dance, the same thing that you've done in every call, let's be honest with ourselves. Does that have anything to do with what you're going to do in your job?
True.
Should I just try to remember answers and respond? Because that's not what's going to get you to sell when you actually get hired.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to help you be a better productive chemist, if that's what you are doing, or an engineer at SpaceX.
Sure.
How do you handle real life scenarios, real time, even if it's as minuscule as conversation? So being able to present your best self in the conversation, and there are some different things you can do to do it. And I'm going to share those. I think one thing I should mention before I do that is one problem that I have come to see that kind of troubles people in this process is they apply for X amount of jobs, let's say 100 jobs, which it sounds like a lot, but to a salesperson, if you make 100 calls, it's just Monday.
Right.
So if you make 100, you're applying for 100 jobs out there just so you can get your foot in the door. More than likely, you're going to get at least 2 calls, tomorrow, or at least 3 people may answer today, and that can be counted as a successful day. But for anyone, 90 to 95 no's can really wear you down. It can really. It doesn't matter if you're an extrovert, if you have the thickest skin, you're tough, whatever the thing is. One's emotional intelligence will determine how far you go into the process. And once you actually get that yes, how confident and healthy overall are you presenting yourself in that conversation? Simply because and I'm going to share with you an example, because I believe that you probably have seen this in different forms. You worn out from all the no's. So about time you finally get to yes, whatever that they say, you're just gonna agree with, because you're just ready to get through the process, and whatever it is they need. You're not presenting yourself as the asset here. You just whatever you need. Yes, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I had a job interview one time, and in fact, I also think one of my clients had a similar job interview with the company. The interview was 4 hours long. And you interview kind of like a ladder type situation. You interview this one person, they ask you 7 questions, they make you wait for 30 minutes, and then a next person comes in, just like an interrogation. Like, now good cop, better cop, worse cop. And next thing you know, and they ask you the same questions. Another person comes in, and they're just switching out. And then next thing you know, you're just kind of like, it's 4 hours in, it's dark outside. You're like, and they come in, hi, yeah, so happy to be here. Yeah. So now, what they're trying to see is, are your answers going to change? Are you going to change? What's on your resume? What you've told the other 4 people with the exact same questions, even if they do variations of the same question. How strong is your emotional intelligence to get through that type of situation? It's not normal to go through a 4-hour interview with 5 people. But traditionally, what's happening is you're going to talk to 4 people over the course of a month, you may talk to two people in a week, one on Monday, another one on Wednesday or Thursday. You may talk to the third on next Tuesday, and you may get your final interview on, Wednesday or Friday. You may get an offer. But how many no's did you go through before you actually received to that point or made it to that point? So and I know we're going to talk about this a little later, but there's a book out there that's an Amazon bestseller. I just so happen to know, who wrote this. Don't mind that it's my name at the bottom, but it gives you real insight on how to improve your emotional intelligence during the interview.
Nice. We'll have to get that title from you. We'll make that available in the show notes. So another topic that pops into my mind in terms of before the interview is I'm just going to hit you both with them. Hit you with them both. I can't talk all of a sudden. That's a problem. And that would be things like gaps in your resume. Your advice for taking jobs that may even be off that path, like the pros and cons, and maybe what you recommend there. And then things like certifications. It's becoming kind of a thing, right? You can get them on even like LinkedIn or what have you.
For sure.
Or what are your thoughts and recommendations around that piece, or those two pieces?
We live in a world right now, and that may change 4 years from now. There's rumor of recessions coming. So I think the job market will dramatically change. But I think as it pertains to what's worked in the past 4 to 5 years and what will work for at least 3 years from now, and hopefully it'll work after that. We live in a world where it's understandable if there was a gap, small gap. 6 months was like the minimum prior, but because of the pandemic, if it took a year, it's also okay. If you took 2 years and you're in sales because you're watching this video, and I know you want to improve your sales because Jonathan is that dude, you probably didn't sell yourself well. You probably didn't present yourself well. How did you get your own leads? Did you have to have a salary in order for you to do the job that you know you're good at? So they're going to look at you in that way is, okay, did you need someone to help you get through? It's okay if you do, but more than likely, the best of the best will get hired first. The worst of the worst will fall on the wayside. So if you're in sales, I would say try to only get jobs within the vein of the industry that you're in.
Okay.
If you have to take a lattice or a lateral job that is different. So LinkedIn right now, and I think they're really awesome for doing it. If there was a break, if you were in school, if you took maternity or paternity leave, there's a spot where that can count as your experience. And I think it's so different. It's so like no one else even really appreciates, when I say no one else, the other career boards are even acknowledging that stuff happens, life happens, and you may need 3 months, you may need 4 months. And LinkedIn is giving you the opportunity to actually put that in there. Now, is that received by other employers? Is that understood by other employers? It can be either or, but at least the option is there. And most employers were probably in the same situation that you're coming out of at some point. Most of these larger companies, they laid off a bunch of people. They're top people that they may not have been the top 5%, but they may have been in the top 20%. They didn't make the cut. So they do have sympathy toward if you had to take 6 months or a year and a half off.
Sure.
But I think ultimately, if it comes down to it, there's always other jobs. Right now, there's I did the search right before the call. I think there's 1.4 million account executive jobs open right now in the United States.
Yeah. I saw the same stat today as well. You're right.
Did you?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And that's not even including the SDRs. That's not including what happens after that. That's just here. Yeah. So if you didn't take advantage of anything that was available to you, then you did it on purpose.
Yeah, so that's not looking so good.
Yeah.
Now, what if you have a career aspiration outside sales? Would you reckon is it still good to maybe grab what you can? Can that look good, or is it better to have a little gap, or is it better to stay, hey, I was working? Like, what is your experience with employers? What do they respect more?
That's perfect. That's actually exactly what I was going to say next.
Okay.
So there is something you can actually do about that.
Hmm.
So if you don't know what, I don't know what next step is in my career. I don't know what jobs I should be applying for. Okay. Why don't you look up people who are doing what you're doing in your industry? Again, LinkedIn is a great place to do it.
Hmm.
And see those top 10 people in your search, every industry, every job, every different word variation of the title. The responsibility is what matters. The title changes in different industry, different companies. Once you look at those top 10 people to see what happened next for them in their career, or where do they come from? That gives you an additional 3% more information to make a decision for your own career as, okay, I keep applying for this job. I'm not getting any insight. Who's hiring people who come from, from Overpass? Who's hiring people who comes from Career Builder, who comes from SpaceX, who comes from Tesla, who comes from Uber? Who's hiring people who come from here? Where do they go next? Because there's something that is special about what you have so far. You may not think about it because you're surrounded by people who all have the same thing and they don't know their worth. But I promise you, there is always a path to people who love what you have learned from your previous employers. Always, 100%. I stand firm on it, 100%. There's always someone, I'm repeating it,
Yeah.
There's always someone who loves what you have learned, because they don't consider that a bad habit that you have to unlearn. They consider that as a skill that they don't have to teach you.
Right. A lot of great nuggets on how to be prepared before an interview. I want to get into the during interview piece, but last few bullet points, recommendations to be really prepared ahead of time for an interview.
Yeah, for sure. Essentially the best things you can do to get prepared before the interview is do your research on the company itself. Do most of your research on how you're going to relate to that company. I know a lot of people tell you, do your research on who's going to be interviewing you. Doesn't matter that I did a speaking engagement at NC State. Doesn't matter that you went to, X college. Doesn't matter that you have 3 kids who all play soccer and one is interested in arts. Those are nice conversations, but that's probably what 4 seconds worth of conversation, 7 seconds worth of conversation. Do most of your insight on how can I be a coworker to the job, not just an employee, not just another applicant, because your end goal is to be hired. You don't want to just be an applicant. You don't want to just be a candidate. You just don't want to be someone that they declined, someone that they spoke with. You want to be a coworker, not just an employee, but you want to be a coworker that adds value and presents your work and culture to that organization, to that industry. How can I be that person? Concentrate on solving that for yourself. So no matter who you're talking to, you know yourself and what you're offering before you get to an interview. And then you spend the remainder time, I would say probably 20% learning more about the company. They're going to want to know that you actually care about what you're applying for. Are they selling courses? Are they selling products? Are they selling different services, software, whatever the case is? Who are their customers? Who is their target audience? Think about the same questions that you would ask yourself, or if you're a salesperson, if you're going to be asking really thought-provoking questions during your discovery call, ask yourself those same questions about those companies so you can get the answers for your interview.
That's good stuff. So you get the call, you schedule the interview. It might be a Zoom call, it might be in person. Let's talk about that. What are some of the, and do the same thing, problem and solution. What are some of the biggest debacles and mistakes that you've been party to or seen among your clients over the years?
First of all, congratulations, you got the interview.
Right.
Now that part is done, but now the real battle begins. So this is what I would say, and I would tell this to anyone. Based on the research that you did about yourself, based on the research that you understood about what you're bringing to the table, understand what types of questions, again, how do they assess value? How do they assess success for their most valuable teammates?
Mm.
And how do you measure up? It's not necessarily about competing, but how do you get in the conversation? So no matter what question they ask you, you'll be prepared. So tell me about yourself. That's usually one of the first crazy, thought. Well, it's not really thought provoking. It's more so just a frightening question that seems to stump people because they don't know how to talk about themselves.
Right.
You get into the interview, you understand yourself, you're going to be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Travis Patterson, and I help people get jobs to interview coaching and also weaponizing their resume so they'll be successful. Oh, well, what is that? Now I'm raising questions.
Mm-hmm.
I take RSEO, which is resume search engine optimization, to make sure that the right eyes are increased by 30 to 40% in visibility with their LinkedIn profiles and resumes so that they get more traction.
That's something else we didn't really talk about that a lot of folks, I think, still are not aware of, is just how important it's basically SEO for job hunters or employers that they use to quickly sift through large numbers of resumes using AI at some of these big companies. I don't think that a lot of workers are aware of that. So here we go. Here's your notice. Literally, you've got to have a resume that's well written the way a website has to be well written. It's got to speak to robot eyes and human eyes simultaneously. That's where skilled people helping you with your resume, there's a lot of value there as well. Just to give you a shameless plug there, brother.
I mean, Jonathan, when's the last time you wanted pizza?
Yeah, well, actually, earlier this week, now that you mention it.
And more than likely, you probably have different options for pizza around you. Pizza near my area. Now, why would those top three, or why would that number one rank higher than the others? Why would your resume rank higher? I'm looking for engineers in Atlanta. I'm looking for sales professionals, BDRs, SDRs, AEs, SAEs in New York and Miami. Why would either one of these rank higher than the other? I think it's because as it pertains to what the best looks like. Again, earlier, I said, look to see what the top 5 people are, like where they go. You can also look at those top 5 people or top 10 people who come up in a search. Don't look for the best sales professional in Atlanta. Just look for sales professional or sales executive or whatever the variation is in where you are. I'm in Atlanta now, so it's a lot of competition. It doesn't mean that you're the worst, but there's going to be somebody who comes up first. There's a reason why. Take a look at their profile and see what type of words are they using. Now take a look at the job description and see how well does it match up, because the artificial intelligence is going to do that with or without you. They have an applicant tracking system. So there's an ATS. I'm going to give everyone a secret right now. It looks like we have just enough time to do it. And then we're going to move on to the next questions. There's an applicant tracking system that is receiving these resumes. When you do a job application, it is received in the ATS. The ATS is then prioritizing who would be a good fit. There is a large library of all the people who apply for it, but it's also going to be a section that's all, no matter what software it is, there's going to be a section that's going to prioritize who, based on chemistry, based on the percentages, who's a better ranking for this, and these are the people you should call first. You have to also understand that some of these applicant tracking systems are going to ask you for cover letters. There's no option to take it away. Most people don't even want to read an additional piece of literature. They just want to know, can you do the job? Can I talk to you? And if it doesn't require you to submit a cover letter, don't worry about it. Don't create extra problems for yourself. Don't create extra barriers for yourself when the person is just want to talk to you based on the chemistry that you're presenting. And the applicant tracking system itself is also designed to make sure that it is keeping spam or not so qualified people from even ranking at all. So there's, of course, millions of ways to improve your resume terminology, just millions of ways. But the one that I gave you by comparing the top people and making sure that is actually comparing to the job description or job descriptions that you care most about, that's really going to help you in a big way.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, and more these sophisticated software systems are going to be relied on by some of the better employers, especially when things shift and there's lots and lots and lots of candidates. They do not lay human eyes on every resume. They can't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So, in the interview, do people have some typical ways that they fall short in terms of conveying themselves well? Are there issues of, I mean, even down to like body posture, eye contact, tonality, phrasing? Are there some, you're a coach, can you give us some golden nuggets on that front today, Travis?
I can. Like right now, one would probably have realized that I've been looking at them the entire time. Whoever you are, I'm looking at Jonathan right now, but at the same time, I'm also looking at my camera. So in Zoom or in Microsoft Teams, depending on what platform you're going to be interviewing with, they're going to give you different options on where you want your gallery to be, or as far as who you're looking at. Because again, emotional intelligence here, a little factor. Sometimes it can be for anyone. It can be a little exhausting interviewing over and over, or even doing shows over and over. And I know, you, Jonathan, you've spoken to so many people, and you do continue to speak to so many people. Looking directly into the camera is one factor that you can use, or rearranging your gallery so that the person that you are looking at is also looking directly there, centered. But if you can have an avatar right on the other side of your camera, on the wall, or somewhere else, you'll notice people who are public speakers, they're never actually looking directly into your eyes. They're always kind of looking out into the crowd. But they're not looking at one person in particular. So you can actually look right beyond your camera, and your exhaustion rate will decrease immediately.
Okay.
From talking to different people. So that is one way that you can get through more interviews, but also make a direct connection with the person that you're talking to. Again, you probably think I'm looking right at you right now. And because of that, you're more than likely to feel a direct connection that I'm not just, looking around in different places. Right. So most people feel connected when you can connect with them.
Nice. So maybe even if you have to make the little rectangle smaller and maybe put it up high where it's close to the camera, that's worthwhile because it creates that feeling of eye contact and human connection. I like that. What are some other good tips?
Oh, man. So again, working from home or even doing interviews, how do you prepare yourself to actually be in the interview? And once you're in the interview, I think one of the probably more immediate things you can do to instantly enhance is to always prepare some really good discovery questions, some really good questions that are not just how much does it pay, but questions that are related to, again, how do you define success for this role? What last quarter, how did the department do? Who are your biggest competitors right now? And those are the type of conversations that you will have as a coworker. And you want to always check the box of the coworker instead of just, as someone who is trying to get in. Right. So look for more questions that if you were in the meeting, if you were in the room right now, and you're trying to help somebody on that project, you're already hired. What type of questions? Two questions that I love to ask and I love to give to my clients. And there's a bunch more. If you guys, are looking for them, I'd be more than happy to share them one-on-one. You can just message me on LinkedIn, Travis Patterson. I would say, again, how do you measure success for this department or for my role? Again, speak in the tense of you're already here, you're already the coworker. And I think another question is, based on previous performance, what are some traits that you've seen or you have deemed to be unhealthy that really don't work well here for your company culture? That's one of those things where it's a little tricky because immediately they're going to think about the last person that used to work there, or a series of people who had bad culture ads, and they're going to probably be a little leery sometimes about answering it. But because you thought to ask them, they are going to want to talk about it. And then they may even feel like they're giving you hints into how to be successful when you start.
I like that.
So you want them to, again, buy into you and make them feel like you guys are partnering on this role to get you inside.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. And as soon as you've helped somebody, even if it's subtle or even subliminal, there's a connection there. There's like a kind of a social obligation that is created that can work in your favor. I like that. What are some more golden nuggets for during the interview? It's good stuff, man.
Oh man. So, okay. I would say, and this would probably be, I probably have thousands to give you, honestly. But if I really want to make connections with you guys, because every scenario is a little different depending on who you're going to be speaking with. I would say, if you come across anything, message me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and definitely message me for sure, and I'll be more than happy to get your answers. I tend to be very responsive up there. So one big thing that can help get you a little thinking time is what I just did just now. If there's people who are, and now they like to provide an analysis of different scenarios and different verbal, you probably caught on to what I did. So I'm gonna break down what I just did. Jonathan asked me a question. I repeated the question. As I repeated the question, I also began to slow down the way I spoke to him to give me the opportunity to think about how I was going to respond. This is a technique that top negotiators use. I learned this during the pandemic. There was all these top colleges, Harvard, and they were passing out all these free certifications. Yeah, I got a negotiation certification from Harvard, and this was probably one of the greatest techniques that I was able to take and give to my clients and to my audience. So if you don't know immediately, it's better to not lie, right? You want to be authentic, you want to be genuine, but it's also okay to think about what you're going to say. For the sake of time, and the conversation may be recorded, conversation may be live, there may be multiple people there, but I promise you, whoever you're interviewing, they're always going to respect the fact that you didn't just shoot them one. You actually thought about what you said. So you ask, tell me about a time where you did X, Y, Z in a matter of 6 months and it was very difficult. Thank you for asking me. That's a good question. So last time I had a difficult scenario where I worked in a project, I just repeated the question. I thanked them for the time. Subconsciously, I'm still kind of grasping from my real actual memories, my real actual thoughts. Subconsciously, I'm putting together this tool, this answer, so I can serve it in a way that makes sense. I don't want to just give it any old kind of way. So I think in doing that, I can pause and I can deliver the answer. There's massive strength in the power of the pause when it comes to delivering an answer. If you already know the answer, then great. That comes off as as standard confidence, that you know who you are. But it comes off as massive confidence when you're able to actually utilize your pauses in a way that it doesn't convey that you're making it up. You're not doing that kind of thing. You're not trying to find an answer. You're more so, you're recognizing that this is a very powerful question and I'm going to give you the best answer possible. Yeah. And it actually increases the confidence that you have, but more so it increases the confidence that it's perceived by the person listening. And I have some more examples of it on my YouTube channel as well.
That's great. That's good stuff. I think the gaps and pauses in verbal communication equate kind of to the white space on a page. It can be very powerful when it's used properly. It does take some insight and coaching to do that. Had a question from the audience here. What are some other good questions to ask in a new role? You gave one earlier about what are some things that don't work here culturally? Do you have maybe a few others you could throw out there?
I think it depends on the department that you are interviewing for. So because I know that majority of people here are salespeople, I would say maybe realistically for your for the people who are not your top salespeople, um, how likely was it for them to actually hit their quota? How many people did you retain last year that did not hit their quota? And you don't want to ask because you're one of them or going to be one of the future ones, but you want to ask anyway. And you can just simply tell them, I'm curious because I really care about coaching. And sometimes the market may be difficult. Sometimes it may be difficult parts of the year. I always love to see how well everyone is willing to help each other. Is that something that you guys really care about?
Nice, nice. How do you make the interviewer feel heard? Like there's a little bit more that could be a nuanced thing. Can you give some advice on that to maybe shift the energy from that interrogation feeling and more into a conversation?
You know, Jonathan, I think it's a great question. And what you can do is immediately start thinking of questions based on, and you actually have done this very well. So I want to applaud you. You have asked me questions based on the last thing that I may have said to you.
Mm,
I think it's such a natural thing to just kind of give and take, give and take. And again, it's just a dance. You bought your Broadway ticket, it's just give and take. It's a dance. You already know the moves, you already know how it's going to end. Now
mm,
you leave. Now you just repeated the same process that ended you to the no call zone.
yeah,
But it becomes a real conversation when you're actually listening to the
right.
person and you ask the questions based on the last thing that they just said. So I think also try to think of questions that are going to be related to what they just said. People hire people that they like.
Hmm.
Ultimately, I think one thing to try to keep in mind as far as the level of questions, you do want them to be good, but your interview helped them realize that you could work there.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, not your interview, your resume. Your resume helped them understand that you could
right,
work there. So they know that you can do the job, or at least you have some type of communication that says you can do the job.
right,
But
right.
now just make more of a connection with the person on the other end of the phone or the other end of the screen. So I would say definitely ask questions based on what they just said, but also find ways to make that one-on-one connection with them because again, you want your inner champion
Yeah,
or for them to recognize you and represent you when they go to the decision makers or any other gatekeepers are going to be.
yeah, for
So
sure,
yeah,
for
definitely
sure.
listen and respond.
I love that. Well, we're coming up on the top of our hour. I know some of our listeners live are going to have to leave here, so I want to go ahead. We're going to have a little bonus section for those who are able and want to stick around. We're going to continue to share some questions from our audience with Travis, and Travis is going to share his insights on how to follow up after an interview. But for those who have to depart, I want to thank you all for being here and remind you that we're sponsored by Overpass, the world's leading platform connecting remote workers to fantastic job and career opportunities. You can create your free account and start getting job offers in a matter of days at overpass.com. So, Travis, what great insight on that. Are there ways you can handle the nerves? That was another question that came from the audience, like leading in, like you have some just practical techniques. Like you could be really well prepared. You still get butterflies. As a speaker myself, I've mastered a few techniques to make those go away and serve me. What do you recommend to the job seeker on that?
So first, before those people who may need to cut out, I want to make sure I give you guys a little bonus. I really thought hard about this, and Jonathan, I remember our conversation. I was like, man, these people are really going to be aggressive in the market. So confidence really rewards you, and in a way that is not just about what's on paper, not just on the interview or during the interview, but also when is the right time to start negotiating your salary. I've created a training just for you guys who are watching this video right now. And if you again message me on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn, Travis Patterson, message me on LinkedIn, message me the word. This is how I know you watch this video. If you didn't watch this video, you message me, hey, I heard about the free training. You will not get it. You have to watch this video. Make sure you like and subscribe to Jonathan's channel. Point blank. Message me these words SaaS Salary Secrets. SaaS Salary Secrets. I will give you that free training to make sure that you know when to negotiate, how to negotiate, and how to apply that confidence to get you through to make sure that you leave out with a higher salary cap.
Now they can message that to you on LinkedIn or anywhere they're able to reach you.
Only
Via LinkedIn. All right. So
only
Travis
LinkedIn.
Patterson on LinkedIn. That's SAAS Salary Secrets. And you'll get a special guide that Travis has prepared for our audience. That's a great offer, Travis. Thank you for that.
No problem. No problem. It's necessary. So, all right. So here we go. The question that you asked is, well, that the audience asked, what type of things can you work through? And honestly, I want to do what you've done to me. I want to ask you. You said that you know some nice tips and tricks to kind of get through that you've worked through. What's one thing that's helped you?
Well, I know for me, a lot of it is the preparation that I'm going to know for certain, at least the first couple of sentences that I'm going to say. Like I got that part down pat. And so I just say them. I focus on saying them carefully. And what I've found is that the butterflies are pretty much gone by the time I get to that second period of that second sentence. That's a big one for me. That's
good. It's really good. Having that insight and that kind of armory to know what you're going to pull before you say, and just know exactly maybe the direction that you may go. You may not know the exact end of the period, but you know how you're going to start off
right
each sentence. That's good. That's good. I would definitely second that for sure. I would also add to it by thinking about what type of, again, your revenue generating, understanding what their process is, doing just a little bit more research to understand what their product is selling for, what their competitors are selling the same product or service or software for, whatever the case may be, and understanding how you can talk about what their competitors know that they may not fully understand that you already know about. And I think, although they may not ask you direct questions to that, but understand some of the terminology that's specific to that industry, as if you were already the coworker, I think kind of knowing those types of insights will give you a bit of leverage. It's kind of one of those things where, not to be too, weird about it, but some people, if they're wearing something special under their clothes that no one else knows about, if you're wearing like red socks or something like that, they're like your power socks or something like that.
Nice.
You go into it like you're smiling the whole time because no one knows that you're wearing these power socks, but you know what these power socks mean to you. So, and I know it's a little weird, but it's one of those things where you can also utilize that mentally, subconsciously, that you're bringing something to the conversation. You're bringing something to the table where you know something about their industry that they probably don't expect you to know. And you can't wait to pull it out. Don't necessarily think about it the entire time because you may pull it out too soon.
Yeah.
But definitely having the conversation and ready to pull, and not just one, but many tools. So when you jump in the conversation, they realize, he already work here. She already works here. They already work here. I just need to give them the applicant, the last little piece of the offer letter, and it's a hand in the glove fit, or feet in the sock fit.
Yeah, in this case, the foot in the sock. I like that. So good stuff. Well, why don't we go ahead and move to that final phase then? So we've successfully ended an interview. We've done a good job. We have interest, hopefully. So what do you do after that interview to really lock this thing down? And what do you not do?
All right. So in order for the next step to make sense, you have to understand that now you have a choice. If you improve how many job applications you are putting out, if you improve or enhance how many responses that you're receiving, if you can have more booked interviews, you can finally choose what you would like to do, what offer you would like to take, what benefits mean more to you, what OTE really truly matches what your capacity is for selling. Again, speaking to salespeople. So once you kind of have that in place and you actually, you do well in the interview, and now what do you do next? Now you repeat the process. You keep applying, you keep going through, because you're not, there's an old term I heard from a Southern saleswoman. She said, a watch pot doesn't boil. Basically,
I've heard that
okay,
one.
you heard that?
Yeah.
Don't
yeah.
just sit there and watch it. You did what you're supposed to do. Go be productive, everywhere else as well. And so that way you're not stressing out and waiting for that one call. Now you have 20 calls coming up this month where they're all going to offer you something. It can be a final interview or an offer. More than likely, you'll probably end up with at least 3, depending on the framework. And I have examples of that framework for people who have gone to my website, or if you probably even have it on your phone already. There's an app called Interviewly. There's a framework that will help you get directly to the point to navigate the interview. It's called Interview Navigator. If you
Nice,
navigate, we got Interview Activator, we got Interview Accelerator, and of course the beginning portion of the process is how do you navigate those things. So Interview Navigator. How do you navigate your pipeline? How do you manage your pipeline for your interviews? So by the time you get to the end, you're no longer stressed, you're no longer worried, because you're going to choose what best works for you. And here's the key part. Once you do, you'll know, send your follow-up letter, or I'm sorry, not letter, email. Thank you so much for this interview. It really meant a lot to me. I have other calls, other interviews that are coming up, but this one really stood out to me. I hope that we can advance. I hope that we can continue the conversation. Let them know that they're not the only one. I hate to kind of always play that game, but truth is, if you let someone think that you have all the time, they will take as much time as they want, and they will prioritize other people over you. In fact, they will even look for 3 more people to interview if they realize that you're still going to be on the market in another week from now. So send them the follow-up. Also, make sure you connect with every person that you spoke with and every person that you will speak to, based on, you can ask, like, there's nothing wrong. Who's going to be the next interview with? There's nothing, it may be a bit showy to say, if I'm, who's the next person I'm going to interview? But you can just ask, if I was to proceed in this process, who would be the next person that I would interview, or who would be the person I would report to if I'm hired? Connect with them on LinkedIn, not necessarily to go message them and say, hey, just let you know I'm coming through. But hey, my name is Travis, and I'm in the interview process right now. Just looking forward to meeting you. Here's my resume if you want to take an early look.
Good. Another audience question: should you follow up multiple times after an interview?
Absolutely, but there's a point where you're being a pest. So you don't want to be a pest. I would say after the first interview, if it takes more than a week, it doesn't mean that you're not chosen. After the third interview or the second interview, if it takes more than a week or 2, then you're more than likely we're not chosen. After the first interview, if it takes more than, I would say, 3 weeks max. Now, I have to say that because every industry is not the same, but for the sake of sales interview process, if it takes more than, I would say, 10 days, you need to check. You probably should already have something prepared to use to check in, because they're probably looking for other people, and here's your opportunity to show them that how you will navigate their customers, how you will follow up with their customers. You can show them right now how you operate by connecting with them. Hey, just checking. No, don't say that. Just checking in. Don't do that. Hey, my name is Travis. You and I spoke, or I applied for the role. I see that the role is still open. Are you available tomorrow for an interview? Are you available next week to answer a couple questions? Mm-hmm. There's something you can do that doesn't show, hey, I'm just checking in. Okay. I mean, whatever that made me not call you originally still persists.
Yeah, checking in doesn't sound very juicy or intriguing at all.
Right. What's your call to action? What's your point? Like, what do you want from this call?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to be top of conversation again. Of
Right.
course, you're not going to say that, but that's what you want. I have a couple questions about the role. Do you have a couple moments?
Hmm. That's good, right? Because it
Yeah.
sounds like you're thinking about it and it's important to you.
Yeah. Like you're still thinking about this is not just another application to you. This is not just another interview to you. You
Yeah.
are further in the conversation. You want to continue to be in the conversation to the point where, again, you are being the coworker. And that's what you want
Nice.
to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it circles right back to the whole thing. This is still a sale. And so you need to create some scarcity and some urgency because, well, humans put off decision making. They just do. And there's a path of least
Yeah,
resistance, and things that seem urgent get more attention. So you're actually serving the hiring person by helping them see you. If you're a good candidate, you're only helping them to help create a sense of urgency, but you've also got to back it up by staying active. And that really dovetails with a common tendency that we see even in experienced account executives. I'll have a really good pipeline, really good conversation, and get an account into their pipeline, about which they've got really good hopes, and they start thinking about the
for
money
sure.
they're going to make. It's not closed yet, and they take an extra long lunch, right? They
Yeah,
don't put in as many calls the next day, or whatever it might be. Or they're not quite as on for that next appointment. That's the last thing you want to do when you have a really
for
good
sure.
conversation. Get right back on it, right? You're on, something's working. You're in rhythm. You're on fire. You're in flow. You want to capitalize on that. And I think the same dynamic is here. A great interview should just, if anything, I'm sure you would agree, probably should spur you. Hey, let's go get another one of those. Let's go find another company, have another really, really good conversation. And really,
Yeah.
there's a sense of putting yourself in a power position, which is great. You want to be
Yes.
there, right? In the driver's seat.
You should do the exact same thing in your interview process, the same thing you're doing in sales. You just
Mm,
had a really great conversation with one person that is like, yeah, absolutely. Now go replicate that same process. Who are their competitors? Who are people in their space?
mm,
Go do the same thing with others because now you're going to instantly improve your callback ratio with the amount of position that you're getting back. I recently just had a client, and I'm going to wrap up with this one. I recently had a client that did something similar. They kept applying over and over to the same position, was not getting any responses back. I said, "Well, who did respond to you? One, and who reached out to you before you responded to them? Two, what are those titles and those types of companies that are reaching out to you, and what types of titles and companies are those that you apply to that they actually responded? Focus on that and you will 10 times your response every
mm,
single time instead of focusing on what's not really productive that doesn't communicate to what you're offering.
mm.
Of course, your offer is, your employment, like you want to be employed,
Right.
but focus on what they most connect with.
Mm.
There's a lot more that I would love to share, Jonathan, but I would have to say that first and foremost, if you're interested in information on how to enhance the flow, your open pipeline, your top of funnel when it comes to interviews, I would say definitely get the interview activator. This is the Amazon bestseller that you have probably seen or heard about in different people. If you haven't heard about it, you're missing out. You will learn how to land more interviews, get more offers, and make more money through the power of getting a choice. When you have more coming in, you can control what's going out.
Love it. So
And
that great book is a great place to start for those who want to follow up with you. I'm
yeah,
sure that they can also find you at your fantastic website, really well built, by the way, which is pattersonresumeresources.com. And we don't want to forget the offer that you extended so graciously to our audience. Go find Travis on LinkedIn and message him SaaS Salary Secrets. That's software as a service, SaaS Salary Secrets. And he's got a special guide he's prepared just for all of you. Travis, what a
yeah.
great conversation. We could keep going for another hour, I'm sure, and have a great time doing it. But let's let our audience go and find your resources for themselves. Thanks so much for coming and adding value to our show today. It's been fantastic to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jonathan. Anytime. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. And thanks again to our whole audience. And once again, thanks to our sponsors, overpass.com. Go there, create your free account, get yourself employed if you're not already. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. Have a great, fantastic rest of your day.